This is going to be a scientific review and dismantling of James Smith and Chris Williamson's new productivity cognitive drink, Neutonic. Now, I'm going to be breaking down each component, each ingredient. Is it efficacious? Are the claims being made accurate? Are the dosages? Because a lot of people are releasing drinks in the last handful of years, and the level of skepticism needs to be had, and degree of critical thinking needs to be had. Is this a money grab? They're actually trying to solve a meaningful problem here. Do we really need another drink in the market? I'm going to be answering all these questions. Is this a good investment for you? Is Neutonic the best or worst productivity drink? Or could you just buy it yourself and break down all the supplements yourself and buy it? And what are some extras that they could have missed as well that you can add to your cognitive stack? I'm going to be breaking that down in a very objective, honest way. I love James Smith. I love Chris Williamson. I've been following them for quite some time, and I want to come at this in a relatively unbiased, objective way, put aside my kind of my adoration of them, and analyze the claims so you can make an informed decision from someone with a very heavy background in science, in biochemistry, in physiology, nutrition science, etc. As a health professional, I'm going to break it down for you right now. Neutonic, okay? By the way, absolutely love the graphic design that they have. It's very memorable. I think they are very aware of this. I have about 1,000 tabs open after the many hours of me breaking this down. Let's begin with the first compound that they have done, and that is something called Cognizin. So we have 6 ingredients in here. Well, B complex is a variety. Cognizin. So we can see we have 500 milligrams. What is Cognizin? It's actually called cytocholine. Cytocholine. It's produced by the body during lipid metabolism, and it's important for cell signaling and structural integrity, the very integrity of our cells. Some studies suggest that cytocholine supplementation can improve attention, memory, and other cognitive functions in a variety of populations. And so they have provided studies on all of the compounds in their drink, which is great. But I've gone deeper in having a look at those studies and seeing what else is out there on the general consensus of the topic. When we're looking at studies, common things that were misappropriated by manufacturers and people who support them, like Prime, absolute trash drink, is dosages, statistical significance, confidence intervals. I'm talking, if you're not familiar with these are the last two are terms of how we determine validity and reliability in research methods and statistics. For example, we can see here that the effect of cytocholine on motor speed and attention in adolescent males, like a target population to an extent that they would be targeting, improved attention, increased psychomotor speed compared to those receiving placebo. It seems to be makes sense. It's weight adjusted, dose significantly predicted increased accuracy on attention task, signal detectability, and computerized attention task, all statistically significant. 28 days of Cognizin cytocholine showed improved attention psychomotor speed. Now, we're not going to go into every single nuance of breakdown, multi-hours of the studies here. We're going to give a brief overview on this stuff. Here's another one. And individuals, so we need to talk about the dosage. 500 milligrams they've done. Individuals in the 500 milligram group made significantly few commission errors compared to those in the placebo group. So this was actually in women, so you need to take that into consideration because we see that there is often sex differences between compounds, and women are actually an extremely underrepresented part of research. Most of the research we've done is actually either on mice or men. So it's good to also see that, not from a virtue signaling perspective, but from like a actual efficacy perspective. Does this work in women? And it seems like it does. We saw them having fewer commission errors, so that's an error of action, and trended towards making fewer omission errors. That's an error of avoidance, like meaning I don't make the error that could have happened. Conclusion: after 28 days of cytocolin supplementation, participants who were administered either 250 or 500 milligrams showed significantly better ability to produce correct responses in the CPT2. The CPT2 is basically a continuous performance test. It's a test that your participants are instructed to press a spacebar as quickly and as accurately as possible, and when any letter other than X appears on the screen, letters appear on the computer screen one letter at a time for 250 milliseconds. Interstimulus intervals between letter displays vary between 1, 2, and 4 seconds. So its measures are provided by the CPT assessment include omission, and commission errors. So you can get an understanding of what type of test it is and how relevant it is to you. This study was done women 40 to 60 years old from Utah. So far, so good. And by the way, I want to point out that intelligently, they've actually already done this. Check it out.
The adults, and it's what we put in here. The expensive part was that we all wanted to make sure it was in efficacious doses. So we didn't just want to say, oh, there's a proprietary blend, there's a little sprinkling of a few different things so that we can claim that it's got these different things in it. We actually wanted to make sure that it was a dosage to actually be effective.
And as far as the story was going for this, so when we first looked at the ingredients that we were going to put into the drink, I actually then went to other people that had no idea I was working on a project, and I actually said to them I was doing a hit piece. And I said, there's this supplement mix of ingredients out there. I think it's rubbish. Can you help me do a hit piece? So I sent it off to someone in the evidence-based community, and he came back and he pretty much said, like, you're going to really struggle because these ingredients are legit. And then I told him, I said, actually, thank God for that. Thank God for that. I was like, oh. And,
imagine if he'd said, yeah, mate, all rubbish.
Yeah.
Take it down.
So that was a very, great part in the beginning to make sure that we were on the right tracks and we weren't living in an echo chamber of, deciding.
So that's really smart. He sent it off to people. They sent it off to people to analyze the list, and they found that. But is that true? Who did it? What were the results? Well, let me elucidate that for you here. Is cytocolin beneficial in cases of impaired cognitive function? Examine.com is a really, really great website, and I'm going to be going through a summary of a lot of the ingredients via them because I'm a member through them, so I can access content that you can't access. I'll leave a link below, a referral link if you want to join, if you're a health professional or just a nerd who wants to know a lot more. So, meta-analysis of observational studies and randomized controlled trials. So yes, it's a precursor to the synthesis of phosphatidylcholine, which is really important for making acetylcholine, for helping. It's a really important neurotransmitter. Helps, just general nervous system health, but also like really important for cognition, for drive, for attention, for focus, for executive function. And so we see a summary of different studies here, and the primary outcome was cognitive function in all of these studies. And cytocolin improved cognitive function with a moderate effect size. One study could not be included, that's okay. But the general consensus on the topic of cytocolin being beneficial to cognitive function seems to be decently strong. And we see actually some other questions around cytocolin. Could it be used to treat depression? There's quite a bit of studies on a bit of older populations as well, so keep that in mind. And then here is some of the mechanisms. So you see healthy elderly adults. It's not to say it's not going to work in younger adults, but it is to say that a little bit of the research is actually on older populations. In this 12-week randomized control trial, 100 healthy older adults took 500 milligrams of cytocolin or placebo. The primary outcome was the raw change in short-term spatial memory. The secondary outcomes were in the raw changes in working and episodic short-term verbal memory, composite memory, which is a total overall memory function, and selective sustained attention. So it seems to work. Important to acknowledge that when you study older populations or people with comorbidities, then you already are working from a greater deficit of general physiological function. And so when you put a intervention in place, like a supplement, like cytocolin, you tend to notice greater improvements in the actual compound itself because the relative deficit in, let's say, cognition here is going to be much greater because they're sheer age. They're older. Whereas the real test, which we did see, in adolescence with the other study. That's the real test. Is like, can you see efficacy in populations of people who don't have relative deficits? And we can see here with cytokinin that we see both. And credit to James and Chris, they're not skimping on the dosages here. They're using an efficacious top dose. They could have gone 250 because we also saw benefits of 250, but they chose to go 500. All right. So a pretty meaningful tick for cytokinin. Here's another one. Yep, I just went into deeper detail here. Let's keep rolling. Now the next one, rhodiola. So what we see with rhodiola is they've used 400 milligrams, and rhodiola honestly has quite robust evidence towards it. And they've cited 3 studies here, and I'm going to show you. Here we go. It's a plant. Very simply, an adaptogenic plant. So typically to see the effects of adaptogens, they need to be taken consistently over a meaningful period of time, usually a few weeks at least. Some can be months, depending on the type of adaptogen. And in brief, rhodiola, anywhere from 4 to 144 milligrams has been shown to confer benefit. But actually, apologies, right here, 288 to 680 milligrams has been noted for the fatigue and anti-stress efficacy kind of range here. And they've split the middle, and they've gone pretty much in the middle, which is a very reasonable thing to do. As rhodiola has been shown to have a bell curve response, it is recommended not to exceed the aforementioned 680 because higher doses may not be as effective. When we look a bit deeper into the research that they're citing and other research, we see a really interesting study on a double-blind, which means double-blind crossover standardized extract of SHR with repeated low-dose regimen on mental performance of healthy physicians during night duty. So really good population to study. Double-blind, so they don't know what they're taking. And the groups crossover, so they end up should have a washout period and then coming back and repeating and doing the placebo. The effect was measured during a fatigue index. The tests chosen reflect an overall of mental fatigue involving complex perceptive and cognitive cerebral functions, such as associative thinking, short-term memory, calculation, and ability of concentration. These parameters were tested before and after night duty during 3 periods of 2 weeks. Like I said, washout period and a third period of a placebo / the tablet daily. The perspective and cognitive cerebral functions mentioned above were investigated using 5 different tests. So if we can see here in this study, we see the 3 different conditions, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is before receiving. So this was the physician's mental cognitive, or rather fatigue state. It's the average values of fatigue indices is the first one. The second one is after 2 weeks of receiving the rhodiola. The third one is they did the washout period and they left them, and you can see them return back to this higher fatigue state. And the fourth one, which is, we're going to control for placebo here, is the placebo. And we can see that clearly in the second, it doesn't look like this massive difference on graphs, but it seems to be a meaningful decrease in stress-induced fatigue in physicians, which is a great population of people to study. All patients completed the study had no adverse effects. Total fatigue index was significantly improved after 2 weeks in different clinical trials with rhodiola. Produced psychostimulating, tranquilizing, and antidepressive effects have been demonstrated, which is really powerful, particularly for populations of people who are under a high stress, whether you're a physician or whether you're an entrepreneur. You have a lot on you, and you can be more prone to those certain ailments. And rhodiola could be a really meaningful compound to add in, 400 milligrams per day. Particularly, it's so ironic that the research, which is done by researchers, which are essentially, some of them are medical students, some of them are, a variety of very intelligent, qualified people in the medical industry, are not using the very thing that they're studying for their medical industry. Now, I know they're technically different people, but it's just an irony that is really unfortunate, because a lot of these people just miss out on it. And we'll come here and we'll see fatigue and stress. One meta-analysis investigating fatigue in academic setting. Well, my computer decides to flip it. Assessing the following studies with students given 100 milligrams, 20 days, 600 milligrams. They gave them something else, rhodiola root extract for 20 days, 100 milligrams for 2 days, 170 milligrams for 42 days, 370 to 550 for a single dose. Overall, these are all different studies. Overall, these studies suggest that usage of rhodiola is associated with improvements in cognitive fatigue, PWC exercise scores, I think that might be a power metric, neuromotoric fitness, maze drawing, reductions in processing errors, sustained attention, reaction time, general well-being, reduction in pulse rate relative to placebo treatment. Although the reduction in fatigue perception appears to be reliable, the improvement in both sustained attention and improved visual reaction speeds appear to be less reliable. Other trials conducted after this date are not included in the meta-analysis at 400 milligrams twice daily for 4 weeks show general improvements and benefits on perceived stress, which is a questionnaire which is wrought with different errors due to the subjectivity. But nevertheless, the totality of the evidence seems to point, and there's a whole bunch of evidence that it has, it seems to point in the direction that rhodiola appears to improve cognition. So, and they're using it in an efficacious dose. And we can see a really nice, if I can clean this over, beautiful. You can see a really nice summary here of a graded evidence hierarchy of fatigue, cognition, well-being, even cortisol, maybe some mixed effects, but multiple studies on fatigue and cognition showing that, these guys have definitely picked a meaningful, good supplement. And if you haven't tried rhodiola by itself, you may want to consider doing that. Now, let's go to the next one. That they have put 400 milligrams of L-theanine. And we all know theanine from our favorite science white man, Dr. Andrew Huberman. It's been shown that theanine can help, as they say, enhance the alpha wave state. Now, alpha wave, so when we sleep, when we are alive, our brain goes through different brain waves. And when we get drowsy and tired, and when we're drifting off into sleep, it's the stage between you're kind of half asleep and your body's kind of like jittering asleep. If you're falling asleep, that's known as alpha wave. And so often companies will put theanine in their caffeine mixed supplement, drink, etc. to curb some of the effects of caffeine, curb some of the less desirable effects, the jitters, the anxiety, the potential crash that some people experience. It kind of smooths things out, so we suspect. Now, theanine is just an amino acid, and it's commonly used now for sleep, but the evidence, you might argue, could be better towards cognitive performance. We see a combination of 97 milligrams of theanine. Remember, they did 4 times that amount, and 40 milligrams of caffeine compared to placebo on cognitive performance, alertness, blood pressure, and heart rate in a sample of young adults of 44 people. Cognitive performance, self-reported mood, blood pressure, heart rate were measured before the theanine caffeine administration and 20 minutes and 70 minutes thereafter. The combination of moderate levels of theanine and caffeine significantly improved accuracy during task switching and self-reported alertness. Yes, it was statistically significant. And reduced self-reported tiredness. Yes, it was again. There was no significant effects on other cognitive tasks such as visual search, choice reaction time, or mental rotation. The present results suggest that 97 milligrams L-theanine in combination during demanding tasks seem to get an effect. So that's good news based off that study they've cited. Let's go more. So you will get some little small amount of theanine in tea, but if we want an efficacious dosage, then we're going to need to go quite a bit more. So we can see there that their claims are supported by evidence. It increases activity in the alpha frequency band, which indicates that it relaxes the mind without inducing drowsiness. However, this effect has only been established at higher doses than that typically found in a cup of black tea. The aim of this research was to establish the effect at more realistic dietary levels. So they did an EEG, they measured the brain waves at 45 all the way to up to 105 minutes of 50 milligrams. Second study replicated this effect in participants engaged in passive activity because, yes, they did notice. So we do notice alpha wave activity. Now, this is we're noticing a change in brain waves. That doesn't mean you notice a change in outcome. Just because someone's actually having alpha waves, it doesn't necessarily always mean that it's actually conferring a benefit to cognition. So we're seeing the brainwave change, but are you observing the physiological state change? Well, let's have a look. When we go to theanine and we see 3 studies done on working memory, you know what's really interesting? I've made verbal fluency errors like multiple times in this video, and I don't usually do it, and I know exactly why. Now I should have had some what is it called? Neutonic. I should have had some Neutonic beforehand, but I want to get this video out quicker before I got some. And the reason I'm having those verbal fluency areas, can anyone guess? Sleep. I'm probably short on 1 to 2 hours of sleep. And as a result, I'm having more verbal fluency errors. So this is very coincidental, ironic, whatever you want to call it, because I could definitely, most likely benefit from these compounds right now. Instead, I have my smoothie. We keep on keeping on. Can't make videos under perfect conditions. Let's have a look. We've seen this first study. What about this RCT? Double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover trial to examine the effects of 4 weeks of L-theanine, 200 milligrams, versus placebo on stress-related symptoms and cognitive functions in 30 healthy males and female adults with no major psychiatric illness. While statistically significant within group effects are noted in the theanine treatment arm and not in the placebo arm for several variables. The between-group comparisons, theanine versus placebo, are not statistically significant and therefore is inappropriate to conclude. So that study, put it in the bin. And then we saw this Japanese study. And this was the study, Japanese women and men. Evaluations performed before the intervention of a single dose of L-theanine after the 12 weeks. So it's a good duration here, really good duration of 12 weeks. A single dose of L-theanine reduced the reaction time to attention tasks, and it increased the number of correct answers and decreased the number of omission errors in working memory tasks. In conclusion, this study indicated that theanine may contribute to improving attention, thus enhancing working memory and executive functions. That is good. That's good news, and particularly to see that actually the acute effects, at least in this study, were noticed immediately. We're not going to get to caffeine just yet. We see small improvement in executive function. We've seen this one. That was actually the same as the other one. That was not statistically significant. This is interesting. Theanine led to a notable reduction in salivary cortisol after 2 hours. There was greater local processing bias with theanine and no difference in global versus. So there were some limitations here. They weren't significant, but it seems to maybe reduce potentially some cortisol, which is an interesting observation. And we've seen this one. These seem to combine together here. And really, look, this isn't a... there are a few more studies out there on this topic, but, sleep isn't that robust, on direct sleep metrics and outcomes. Double-blind, theanine function 30 healthy males with no okay, so this was the same one. So they've actually, this study that they've done, while it was statistically significant, it's lumped in and it's measured at multiple different outcomes here. Anxiety, stress, signs and symptoms. Okay, moderate improvement. This is actually probably the most robust improvement that we've seen on theanine this whole time. Randomized trial, 20 healthy subjects, 200 milligrams, twice. So they're taking 400 milligrams. There wasn't an apparent effect on theanine of salivary alpha amylase. Subjective stress was lower in the theanine group. I don't know why they're measuring alpha amylase. I don't know why you'd be measuring a digestive enzyme. The effects of green tea amino acid on the ability to manage stress and anxiety levels. And we can click this study. And we can see that the findings suggest that 200 to 400 milligrams of L-theanine may assist in the reduction of stress and anxiety in people exposed to stressful conditions. So we can see theanine, while it's not as robust as rhodiola or cytocholine, it does have a small effect with some mixed data on the significance, but it does seem to have a somewhat consistent effect on stress and stress and smoothing out the effects of potentially the caffeine spike to help relax you. Caffeine, man, this is one that almost all of us are aware of, how it can have. It's one of the most well-researched supplements for exercise performance, power output, acute exercise performance, albeit that. What about cognition? Well, this one's probably more of a no-brainer. Effects of low-dose caffeine on cognitive performance, mood, and thirst in lower and higher caffeine consumptions. Let's just get to the results. Effects on performance and mood confirmed a psychostimulant action of caffeine. All doses of caffeine significantly affected cognitive performance, and the dose-response relationship for these were rather flat. The effects on performance were more marked in individuals with high level of habitual caffeine intake, whereas caffeine increased thirst only, because it can increase thirst, in low caffeine consumers. So people who don't consume caffeine is much more sensitive to the thirst increase in response. After overnight caffeine abstinence, so they don't have caffeine overnight, caffeine can significantly affect cognitive performance, mood, and thirst at doses within and even lower to the range of amounts caffeine contained in single serving of popular caffeine containing drinks, which is about 50 milligrams. Regular caffeine consumers appear to show substantial tolerance to the thirst increasing, but not performance and mood effects. So this is saying, this is if I'm reading this correctly, without going through every word of the study, is that it's suggesting that the performance and mood, I'll scroll down for you, performance and mood enhancements are sustained even if someone is a habitual caffeine drinker. However, when we actually observe caffeine, we actually see that, and there's actually many other studies, there's a few other studies to suggest this, that the benefit of caffeine seems to be more beneficial and more greater in people who have abstained from caffeine intake for a meaningful period of time. And that the same effect it has on your nervous system becomes to be blunted after consistent use. It is not as robust and powerful. Meaning 100 milligrams on day 1 and you haven't had caffeine in a month versus 100 milligrams on day 100 and you've had caffeine every day. Day 100 is usually going to stimulate less profound benefits on your nervous system. And we see caffeine is a very, very, very big, largely researched compound. Pain relief. It's more interesting when we get higher here. Power output, A. When's the last time you saw A? You haven't so far. Appears to be a reliable and significant increase in power output. So this could be something you could also take before weight training. You could do a little bit of a stack, a bit of a Neutonic stack. Is I could take it in the morning with my cognitive work like here, and I could take it, before training. and then go into some more cognitive work after that. Yes, it will increase cortisol. Makes complete sense. Will increase power output. Will increase heart rate. Will increase attention. Reaction time. Absolutely makes sense. Aerobic exercise metrics. Fat oxidation. Power output. Blood lactate. Heart rate. High cortisol. If we're driving ourselves into more of a sympathetic state, pupils are going to be dilated. We're going to be able to usually have greater verbal fluency, better cognition, particularly if our heart rate's a little bit higher as well. We should be able, our reaction time should be improved as well. These are just basic mechanisms of understanding of physiology. And if I go here in this study of effects of low dose caffeine on cognitive performance, mood, and thirst in low and higher caffeine consumers, and we can see the milligrams here, and on the far right of the first top left table, that this is the dosage that Neutonic is using, and this is the reaction time. So the reaction time goes from about 5-10 milliseconds to under 500. It's about 490, which is meaningful. You know, if you think about a reaction time in a 100-meter sprint, I've done a video on this on my channel. I believe their cutoff in the Olympics for a 100-meter sprint is, you know, when they sprint and the gun goes off, and it's like not disqualification, it's in a warning because someone's jumped the gun. They say that their rule is about 100 milliseconds, if I recall correctly. 100 milliseconds. You can't respond faster than 100 milliseconds. However, I've actually analyzed this, and you actually technically can respond faster than 100 milliseconds. So, not to come out here and say the Olympics is wrong, but based on physiology, they're probably given a bit of a buffer here. But you can actually respond in about 80 milliseconds, about 60 to 80. And so, a lot of these jumping the gun is some of them it may be unwarranted, and people may be disqualified from the Olympics unfairly in sprints. So, if we're talking that someone can respond in about 80 to 100 milliseconds, once they hear something, you can see the relative actual meaningful difference that if you take Neutonic before you're about to do a 100-meter sprint, you take some caffeine, you take some Neutonic, and your reaction time is faster, then you could save tenths of a second. And when you're running races, particularly power events, tenths of a seconds are extremely valuable. Next, let's go to the second last one, ginseng. Panax ginseng. This is a plant used in traditional medicine. It appears to be effective for mood, immunity, cognition. It's even been studied for erectile dysfunction, testosterone, and exercise performance, but those outcomes, it doesn't seem to be very effective. Now, studies have shown, they claim studies have shown improvements on fatigue. And so let's go and look at Panax ginseng. One of the principal studies here was the 2005 one on reduction in blood glucose and improvement in cognitive performance during sustained mental activity. The reduction in blood glucose is pretty interesting. Nice little side effect there. Double-blind, placebo-controlled, balanced crossover design. So, by the way, I need to give some credit to James and Chris. Whoever was on their research team, they're actually citing quality research. Like, from a methods perspective, I haven't seen a single observational, I haven't seen a single epidemiological, probably not that would really suit this type of intervention anyway, but I just want to credit. I've only seen one study that wasn't statistically significant, but I don't know if they actually cited that one. That was just another one as part of the birth of evidence. So a degree of credit definitely needs to be given. You know, well done. And then 6 times, definitely can't say that for, Logan Paul. Definitely can't say that for him. 6 times in immediate succession, commencing 60 minutes after the day's treatment. We have 200. So they put 200 milligrams in, which is the same as this study here, or 400. The 10-minute battery comprised of serial 3 subtraction tasks, serial 7 tasks. These are just different, like, cognitive math, like problem solving tasks. rapid visual information processing, mental fatigue. Both the 200 and 400 milligrams led to significant reductions in blood glucose levels at all 3 post-treatments, which is good. Because if you are overweight, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you consume a very high amount of calories and carbohydrates in a surplus for long periods of time, this is important to consider. The most notable behavioral effects were associated with 200 milligrams of ginseng and included significantly improved serial 7 subtraction task performance, significantly reduced subjective mental fatigue throughout all, with the exception of one time point. Overall, the data suggest ginseng can improve performance and subjective feelings of mental fatigue during sustained mental activity. Yes, statistically significant as well. We have 9 studies here. Let me back up for you a little bit. We have 9 studies on cognition, which is, I think, the most that we've seen on a single compound for cognition, with a total of over 400 people. Increasing cognition seen acutely and thought to be due to anti-fatigue effects, with non-fatigued individuals not experiencing an increase in cognitive performance. So what this is suggesting is that non-fatigued individuals may not experience the benefit in cognitive performance, but fatigued individuals may. Well, most people are fatigued, so a good thing that will probably work. We've seen the first study. Let's just click on a few more and have a look at a few more. This paper looked at 3 randomized controlled trials on the effects of ginseng. In each trial, participants would attend 5 separate study days and with a 7-day washout and consume an allocated dose of the intervention, ginseng or placebo, which will be followed by hourly cognitive testing for 6 hours. It's a long time. The first study had participants consuming 120, 240, 360 of ginseng. The second study had participants consuming 200, 400, 600. The third study, what did they find? Let's have a look. There was a dose-dependent improvement in speed of responding during the serial 3s following ginkgo biloba. Different doses of so they actually did. They would have done. Oh, they examined 3 studies here. That's why. So ginkgo biloba is another thing they could have added in this supplement. In their drink. I'm sure they looked at it. Different doses of ginseng improved accuracy and slowed responses. It's good. The most striking result, however, was a significant and sustained increase in the number of serial 7 responses following 320 milligrams of ginkgo ginseng combination. So this appears to be that the combination of ginkgo biloba and ginseng was more profound. And that may have been something that they considered doing, but you got to be mindful when you make a drink or a supplement. You can't always throw the kitchen sink at it. Effects of red ginseng on human gray matter, ginseng and ginkgo biloba effects. Another combination one. That's actually probably the individual study we saw before. Alzheimer's disease, interesting. Attention. Attention is part of cognition. Ginseng in preventing, mitigating stress-induced failure of cognitive functions in healthy subjects. You can pause the video there if you want to read that. Reaction time, a small improvement. And fatigue symptoms, it's one study with a moderate improvement, but there was something about the high heterogeneity. Research shows a meaningful reduction in fatigue, though with high heterogeneity. So meaning heterogeneity, meaning it was there's a lot of variance. There's a lot of variance in the outcomes and the data. So they noticed a meaningful reduction with fatigue. So they saw the depth of it, but they saw the unreliability of it. So mixed data. That's why it's a C there instead. So ginseng, you can see, I can see what they've done here. It seems like they've progressed these compounds in the level of hierarchy of evidence they have for each. So Cognizin, Rhodiola, theanine, caffeine, ginseng, and then we have lastly B vitamins. Now, they say they've done 100% of the NRV, the nutrient reference values. So what does that mean for you? Let me show you. This is what it means. Their B6, their B12, their folic acid, their B7, biotin, pantothenic acid, 6 milligrams. You can see this is basically what they would have done. And thiamine is B1. This is where I would have some critique here. Most of these, the NRVs, these are nice. These are like nice to haves, right? These are just like little bonus. Let's give you some B complexes. Let's just, hopefully make sure you're not from a completely devoid deficient state. A lot of people are. Okay, a lot of people are. Problem is, these NRVs are relatively insufficient to produce the ideal optimal results we would want to see in somebody. So if I go, for example, B12, start with B12. Being deficient cobalamin has been shown to cause cognitive deficit, result in neurological damage, meaning that keeping your daily allowance on B12 is imperative to making sure that your brain is working at full capacity. Neurological damage does not usually occur until you've been deficient for years. It usually takes a long time for you to become deficient in B12. Usually you have to either have some type of absorption problem, maybe you don't make intrinsic factor, maybe you've had some type of gastric surgery, or maybe you're taking things that are inhibiting the absorption of B12, etc., etc., etc. So, or vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, etc. Questions here. What type of B12 are they using? Most supplements will use cyanocobalamin, which is a synthetic form of B12, often found in fortified foods, and it is not converted and very bioavailable, particularly compared to methylcobalamin. And I should have some data for you in a second, but much more bioavailable. It's used directly in the methylation cycle, crucial for DNA synthesis and supporting nervous system function. I can't see anywhere on which types of B vitamins they're using. They probably think, I'm assuming that, it's not that important. It's not like big components of our drinks, or, we don't need to add this little, don't need to let people micromanage and really get into the nitty gritty of criticizing our drink because we used cyanocobalamin instead of methylcobalamin. Well, I would say if you guys want to really truly make this the best productivity cognition drink and stay at that level, then this would be a gap that I would identify. Without knowing which type of B12 you're using, that would be an assumed gap. Also, another critique is that 2.4 micrograms, which is the NRV, is really low. And some studies show that are actually up to 10 micrograms, so about 3-4 times that amount, may be needed to maximize plasma B12 concentrations. Now, whether we need to maintain maximal plasma concentrations is a bit of a different question here, whether we need to do that all the time. Nevertheless, definitely higher for most people, particularly females, particularly people on plant-based diets, particularly people who are training a lot, is going to be really beneficial, particularly people with gut issues. To give you context on how you can hit this B12, one large egg will get you half a microgram. 1 3-ounce serving, or 150 gram-ish serving of salmon will hit your 2.4 micrograms nutrient reference value. Just like that. The upper limit, guess what the upper limit is? It's 1,000 micrograms. So it's massively higher than this. It's a water-soluble vitamin, B vitamins, so they're excreted very quickly. And we know B12 deficiency and B vitamin deficiency is intricately linked to fatigue. I particularly noticed that a lot with my clients, many of my clients, and addressing that is something I commonly do with great efficacy and great effect when I give them, when I look at their blood work and I guide them through that. Now, B1 is something, again, that is, I think, a great opportunity for them to. So we have 1.1 milligrams, and I think they've missed an opportunity here. They've missed an opportunity to, I think, squeeze out a really meaningful effect on their drink. Okay, you put about 1.1 milligrams of B1 in here. I don't know what type of B1 you've put in, maybe hydrochloride, HCl, but when we go look at B1, B1 is so important to consume. Oh my God. B1 deficiencies help, or B1 helps make the myelin of your myelin sheath in your nervous system. And so the myelin sheath is what helps propel action potentials in these electrical nerve impulses, propagating down your nerves and through your axons, through your dendrites. And you can think of it as the Mario Kart speed booster, right? Except if you're deficient in B1, or you're excreting a lot of it or utilizing a lot of B1 and you're becoming deficient in it, man, that myelin sheath, that Mario Kart speed booster, it's like sluggish. It's like someone just dropped the banana peel and you slow and you just living on the banana peel slowness. That's just one. It's because it's considered this nerve vitamin. It is going to be metabolized and used in much higher proportion the more glucose you consume. So, if you're consuming 500, 600, 700 grams of glucose per day, many thousands of calories per day, maybe you're in a surplus, you definitely want to make sure you are supplementing with B1, because you will not be able to get anywhere near enough from food. You need to be mindful of this because you need magnesium when supplementing with thiamine, B1, and vice versa. So high B1 stores can lead to low magnesium stores. So you need to make sure you're supplementing accordingly with magnesium. I like a magnesium blend. I'll leave a discount code below for all the supplements that I'm going to link if you want to build your own version of this. And I get all my supplements for me and my clients from iHerb that you can use if you would like. Anyway, we're talking 1.1. We will see benefits for thiamine, particularly fatigue and the nervous system, and energy levels at 100, 200, 300, 400 milligrams. So literally 100 to 200, 300 times more what is in the drink. I'm not expecting them to put that in, but I think it could be a slam dunk, potentially. Now, when you put that amount, you might need to put some disclaimers. You might need to do a little bit more research and make sure you have enough magnesium. And now you have thiamine in there, and now you put magnesium in there, right? So I think this could go a long way to use a benfotiamine or a TTFD, if they have the budget for it, into this drink to take it to a new level. That would be a critique, but of course, there are levels of complexity with that as well. But interestingly, just a little summary, B1 PMS symptoms, talking about fatigue and productivity and energy. There's nothing more fatiguing and energy sapping than a female obviously experiencing PMS symptoms. So this could be a nice slam dunk. We see a large improvement here in these two studies of nearly 400 people of B1 ameliorating the PMS symptoms. 100 milligrams of B1 or placebo taken for 2 months. Really, really, really amazing compound. And then just to give you a little bit of an insight into some B1 different studies here. So in summary with B1, I would say if you're experiencing anxiety, low energy, excessive sweating, nervous tension, orthostatic tachycardia, which is when you lie down or sit down and you get up and you get really lightheaded and dizzy, panic attacks, nightmares, recurrent ear infections, and a buildup of lactate really quickly, abnormally, then I would look into a B1 deficiency and address that accordingly, particularly if you have gut issues, because you need adequate B1 to make hydrochloric acid in your gut, which helps digest food and creates an acidic environment in your stomach, which is critical. So we're simply now going to finish off with two things. One is, what do you do if you want to build this yourself? Like, do you need to pay 35 USD? And if you honestly, like right now, the shipping to Australia is really expensive. I'm in America now, so I can get this. You know what? Hey, I'm going to get this right now. I'm going to get some of this right now because I'm going to try it and also show you the difference in if you want to build it out with supplements. And what could they have missed? And what could you add to your cognition stack? What they could have missed and what they could add, and I'll finish off with how you can build this on your own for half the price, is this. This is part of their competition, and they may not think so. They may think this is more of an energy drink, but actually, if you look into the compounds, it's actually quite linked to cognition as well. This is Derek from More Plates, More Dates. This is his energy drink. Definitely have a lot of trust with Derek because of how well researched he is, how objective he is, how dedicated he is to scientific rigor. And this is his. We have tyrosine, alpha GPC, we have caffeine, obviously double the amount, uridine, theanine, same as the other guys here, but it's a quarter of the amount, saffron, huperzine A, vitamin C, niacin, B6, which is good, and he has a bioavailable form of B6, P5P, B12 as methylcobalamin, the bioavailable form, and he has more than double the amount of what Neutonic has, and then pantothenic acid. No B1, no B1, which is a little bit disappointing. Nevertheless, you can now see, okay, what could they have missed? All right, I would defer to what Derek's put in his, and looking at tyrosine, I definitely think tyrosine is a missed opportunity. Because of how important that amino acid is to create dopamine and noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and how these things are depleted under stressful conditions, which can compromise, as we say, cognitive function. And if you want to know more, we did a conversation with Lucas from Adaptogenic Health on our podcast, our Catabasis podcast, and he talked about tyrosine in it. So if you want to know more, you can see there. And when we go down to the actual benefits, we see 8 different studies having a small improvement on working memory, 3 different studies having a small improvement on attention as well. And so you could look at tyrosine and start implementing that into your routine as well. And we see 500 to 2,000 milligrams, 30 to 60 minutes before any acute stress. Exercise, for example, tends to be efficacious. And then you can see the relative amounts here as well. So tyrosine, I think, could be a potential extra that they could have added. And even alpha GPC, another collagenic compound, which helps make acetylcholine, a really important neurotransmitter, and could help minimize cognitive decline. Even some maybe some moderate small effects on growth hormone and some other components of cognition, including the cognitive decline outcomes here. And then actually Derek on his video here goes into great detail on alpha GPC on some of the studies that aren't even covered here as well. And the last one is huperzine A, cognitive enhancer, and it inhibits an enzyme that degrades the learning transmitter acetylcholine. So acetylcholine will metabolize, it will break down, and this actually minimizes the breakdown of acetylcholine, so you can kind of stay on task, stay driven, stay focused for longer, if you will, because it minimizes this enzyme breakdown. But this is more a theoretical, mechanistic explanation. We don't have much evidence from my observation to support this. But you have 3 compounds that you could look into that are above what we have and what the boys could add if they wanted to make this potentially an even more robust drink and compound itself. Now, lastly, I'm going to show you how you can build your own version of this. And so I would say, if you like James, if you like Chris, go support them, right? They've spent so much time, so much energy, so much money. It's convenient, it's tasty, it arrives at your doorstep. It's just one thing. A lot of you will not have the adherence, the will, or the care to build your own stack, like someone like me who likes to be in more control of the variables and likes to titrate and move things up and down and test one thing at a time, right? If you want to do that and build your own at about half the price, or you can't ship it to where you're located because of the price, then you can look to build your own. Breaking it down, I will give you my recommended brands. It'll be Thorne, it'll be Life Extension, it'll be Gyro Formulas. And I've done based on the per capsule amounts for the dose that we're looking at. I've done Rhodiola. And again, links in the description if you want to see a discount to these and all the links for these compounds. Or you can go Thorn, of course. Highly recommended. We have Cytocholine. This is the more expensive one. I've chosen the more expensive one here. We have another version if you want to go for that as well. We have L-theanine. We have Panax ginseng. And then we have a B complex, which I personally won't take because I have enough B vitamins individually from what I do. But you could add that as well. And so if we add this up, what we see is, I'll break down the math for you. Cytocholine is going to cost you 84 cents per serving. Per serving of 500 milligrams. Rhodiola is going to be 20 cents. Theanine is going to be about 34 cents. Ginseng is going to be 21 cents per cap. B complex is going to be 30 cents per cap. And you can see actually the per serving in the top right corner for most of these. And when you add that all up, per serving, if we want to make an equivalent comparison concoction, the 12 cans is going to cost you, if it's 35 USD, and it's 12 cans, so 35 divided by 12 is $2.91 per can. You're probably making about 40-50% profit margin, fair enough. All good, get your money, love it. They're solving their own problem, which I love. Support them, absolutely. Love that. But if you want to build it yourself, you can build it for about $1.89 per serve. So it's nearly half the cost. And if this is something that's going to be a cognitive stack for a long period of time, you're on a really tight budget and you really want to eke out some more cognition, or you just want to play around with these compounds yourself and build your own stack, and you don't mind purchasing everything on your own and then building your own stack, and you know you're going to be highly adherent, then you can have that option. But the drink is going to be great for people who just want something quick, something easy, something that they can. See, the difference is you can drink it over a period of time. It's like a sustained build versus capsules. They drop in and then it's released. So the different amount of timing of absorption. But you can, if you want to build your own, you can. Overall, I was not expecting this. I was kind of expecting it, but I wasn't expecting the level of scientific rigor and the level of quality supplements that they use to be in here. Cognizin, Rhodiola, L-theanine, ginseng, B vitamins. This is a robust, good quality, scientifically backed with good quality evidence, cognition drink that I would recommend people try. And I think it's affordable as well. Like $2.90 per can is affordable for people who want to push more out of that cognition. But I will say, this is for those who are not yet looking to go deep into their internal health. Because if you have energy problems, if you have focus problems, if you're feeling low, if you're feeling like, you don't have a great deal of drive or motivation and you're really fatigued, your energy's low, these problems are usually due to internal biochemical problems. You need to look at your blood work. You need to identify your nutrient deficiencies. You need to look at your sleep. You need to look at your lighting. You need to look at your movement. You need to look at your food intake, your water intake, your air quality. You need to look at all these basic foundational principles. In my experience as a health professional, this is something we do first before we look to add interventions and aids on top. We make an assessment of the individual to see what they'll be most adherent to. But most people will benefit, all people will benefit significantly from working on those things first. And I think this is a bit of I'm not their product in particular, but creating products is great. I have one right here, yourmastery.co, right? It can be a red herring distraction for the consumer who are looking to solve their issues, their energy, their fatigue issues. It can be a red herring for that because they can begin to think they're actually getting to the bottom of it, or they're really helping their fatigue and energy and it's like distracting them from getting to the actual root of it. And they go around in circles. This drink didn't work. This supplement didn't work. Well, they actually probably will create an acute benefit for you. For most people, they'll create an acute benefit, but there'll be an underlying unresolved issue as a result of the fatigue or the cognition, or whatever ailment you're experiencing or symptom you're experiencing. And you've put this thing on top of it, the product, the drink, the supplement. And now You might not notice the symptom anymore, but the internal actual issue is still underlying and will continue to increase in the background until it becomes observable again. And the thing that you're taking as the aid and supplement doesn't work. And you'd be like, it doesn't work anymore. Well, actually, your issue in the background probably just got worse. So what I would encourage for everybody is, yes, use these products. They can be great. They're great aids and tools. And I love James and Chris, and I support them. And what they're doing, I hope this helps them sell more product. As a consumer, as an individual, as someone who's interested in their health and wellness and who's watched this video to this point, make sure you get to the root cause of your issues. If you have certain symptoms and signs with your health and wellness and performance, make sure you objectively analyze and you have someone, a guide, a health professional, a coach, someone like me, someone good who can have a look, analyze and build a specific protocol and guide for you to get to the bottom of it so you don't need supplements and aids anymore. I don't drink coffee. I take supplements, of course, but I don't take cognitive enhancing supplements. I have almost every day, this, a big energy reserve. My sustained energy from time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. Unless I'm sleep deprived, then I'll, of course there'll be some effects. But if, I'm not alone. There are certain small amounts of people like me who have gotten the right concoction of sleep, of training, of health, of wellness, of blood work, of supplements, of nutrients, to sustain their energy. They're living with purpose. They're doing what they want to do. All of these things, this concoction, when you do all of that right, you don't tend to need to rely on products like these. And so I would say, enjoy these products, but don't let it distract you from getting to the bottom of your internal health issues and challenges. I'm Alexander from Strength to Saad. If you want more, follow me on Instagram, Strength to Saad, or if you want to see more, let me know below and subscribe if you want to see. Thank you for watching. Thank you to James and Chris. Much love.